How is everyone doing on this good old Saturday? I just want to make sure before I get started. I've been spending all week working on getting streaming software going, the sound and everything like that. But I just want to make sure before I get started or anything like that. Is my sound okay? Does it look okay? The visuals, any issues or anything like that? Because I know all week I've been trying to make some changes with the visuals and audio and stuff like that. So if there's ever any issues or anything like that, you can let me know now before I get started, because I want to make sure that it's helpful for everyone involved here. All good? Awesome. Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. Appreciate that. Cool. Awesome. Thank goodness. Got this figured out. You can thank my wife, who has the brain cells here. She was very helpful in putting this together. There's no way I would have been able to do that. So I appreciate that. Cool. So like I said, what we have here, as I put this together, I appreciate everyone coming by. You can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, I mean, when I do this is currently at 100% and the text is only at like 11. When I get to the dashboard part, it might get a little bit tough because I'll have to zoom out a little bit. But for this right now, if I have to make the text a little bit bigger, I can, but I'll do that in a little bit. But we have right here, as I said, I appreciate everyone coming by, working on this dashboard, the budgeting dashboard. It's something I have a huge interest in. I always try to find a way to use data in my everyday life. And I think that for everyone, especially in 2024, when everyone's doing certain things like YouTube or doing coaching or doing other kind of services, it's good to kind of keep track of your expenses, your streams of income, and then try to make it into something that's a little bit visually pleasing, something you can look at and possibly even make into a project, using more fake data. But you can put a project in your portfolio. I think this is something that could easily go onto a portfolio because it's something unique and something interesting, and you never know who might be interested in it, especially if you're going through a job interview process and you're trying to get connected with a hiring manager. Something like this can be very useful because what you're doing is something that's actually used in everyday life. So I want to kind of walk through this a little bit. And as I have right here on my one screen, I have the chat. So I see everyone talking. So if there's ever any questions that come in or any comments, by all means, I can see right here. I can try to answer it. I'm going to walk through this project right here. Walk through the dashboard I kind of pulled it together for you guys. Worth putting that, like I said, so is this worth putting in a portfolio for freelancers? I would think, why not? I think definitely for a freelancer, because especially if you're working with Excel, there's going to be certain things in here like the lookup functions, formatting, pivot tables, that if you're able to show this off, I think that really could be a huge interest in people who need Excel reporting or Google Sheets reporting. So being able to put this in a much more organized, professional manner can be very helpful for your portfolio, whether you're trying to do freelancing or if you're trying to get into a data analytic job. So here's the data we're going to be working with here. And all I have set right here is on the left side is our income, right side is the expenses. All we have right now is the month, the title, which is the description of what the type of income or expense is, and the amount. There's going to be some things we have to do here to want basically put together into one set of data, not two separate, just one set. There's going to be some things we're going to be doing here to extract from the month. We're going to have to change up the amount to make that into a currency. And then we're also going to do a little Power Query. It's not really necessary for this. I mean, it's not a ton of data, but if you've never used Power Query before, I'm just going to show a couple things we could do with it just to show you how it works, and we could go from there. So this is what we're working with. And like I said, all of this also be customized afterwards. So after you do this, you have basically the template down of the dashboard. You could add in for you, like let's say for income, instead of online courses, you do something else for an income. You just switch that out and put in the information you need. Same thing for expenses. If you want to add in another category or two, you could do that. This is just so you have the template down, you understand how it works, and then afterwards you can make any changes to your own personal well-being. So here's the data we have here, and the dashboard I already put together. I didn't really want to take up a ton of time doing a bunch of formatting, because this would take a very long time. And yes, since this is on YouTube Live, this automatically saves. So afterwards, it literally, you can watch it right away. You can even look back right now if you want to. So the whole entire time with this, you can always come back, look at it, view another time, or even go back as this goes along to see maybe something you missed. So this is on my YouTube. You'll be able to look at this at any time. So this dashboard, when we get closer to this, I'll explain what's going here. But a lot of these columns are already merge and centered. Certain information will be going in here, and these boxes, if you were here on Wednesday when I did like a mini workshop, these outside borders are not going to stay here. They're just here so we know what certain information is going to go and where to place it, just so it's staying as organized as possible. And down here as well, this will be kind of like our totals for our income and expenses. This will be just income, and this will be just expenses. I already took the time to create these columns, so we're not sitting here dragging, doing merge and center over and over again, taking up 20 minutes. But it's just an example of each of these are just merged together. Like for example, this one is F66 and 67 merged together into one. This one is C, D, and E merged into one, and it's just reapplied to what we have in our current data set. So if you do this on your own and you have more income, then this obviously just becomes a little bit more. And if you have less expenses, then this becomes a little bit less. So that's what we have here. When we get closer to that, we will dive more into what's going to go into these areas. And yes, interactive dashboard. So the parts that become interactive will be our charts right here. That is interactive based off the slicer we're going to have. And everything in here with our expenses and income, that all changes based off the data that we have. So if this changes, this changes. That's just how it works. And then here we have different sheets, which is where we'll be putting certain charts and pivot tables. So this one will be talking about our income streams. This one will be about our savings percentage, the expenses using a pie chart, our income and expenses. So I like to do that, especially with Excel. I like to try to take every pivot table or chart I have and try to organize it a little bit, because there are times where if you try to put multiple pivot tables on one sheet, it might work out at times, but there's lots of times, I don't know if it's just me, but it can become a huge mess. So I want to make sure I am trying to keep it as organized as possible so I know where it's coming from. We are going to name our tables so we know where they're also coming from. We're just trying to keep this as organized as possible so you could use this in your own everyday life. So, with that in mind, before I get started with this, like I said, because it's a live workshop, there might be times where I might be going a little bit slower at times. There might be times I might be going a little bit quick. The whole point of this too is because it's a live workshop and it's on YouTube, you could always go back in case there's something you missed. Or if you ever have a question, like I said, utilize the chat because I have two screens and I can see it right here on the side. The web Excel version. Obviously, yeah, I don't use the web Excel version, but I don't see why not. Yeah, I don't see why. That slicer, yeah, that should be definitely used, especially on the web version. Yeah, that should be no problem. So what we have to do here is I want to make this just one table. And the thing with this is if you're just trying to put together a sheet, just keep it organized and looking okay. I just did a couple of merge and centers here. But the problem is if you want to try to filter here from this top row, you can't because it's merge and centered. So what I want to do really quick is there's a handful of things. There's going to be something in here when we get to our dashboard, because this top row is going to be the month, right? The thing is, I don't want the cells to be different sizes. I want them to be consistent, because if they're consistent, it looks much better. And every month doesn't have the same amount of letters. June has 4, August has more than that. So like it just will not look that great. You're going to have some cells that are much wider, some are shorter. It's not going to make too much sense. So we're going to do some kind of abbreviation for that. So like I said, we're going to leave the column month, but I want to make a new one with just the abbreviation. Because I want to keep this because I'm going to eventually use this as the slicer. I want the full name for the slicer. And I'm going to use the abbreviated one for the column name. And then also I want to, because eventually I want to make sure I tell Excel, okay, full-time job is income, consulting is income, but also housing is expense, utilities is an expense. So I need to make a new column that's specifying, okay, this title is associated with income or an expense. Just so when I get to using my charts later, when I get to the expense chart right here, I could be able to tell Excel I only want to look at this and nothing over here. So first things first, I'm going to get rid of this first row since we don't need that. And like I said, the thing I'm going to be doing just right now, there's going to be one thing I'm going to be doing, is I'm going to be adding in a new column for right here and here. So I'm going to put it to the right of title. So I'm going to click into column C, right click, and then insert the column. And I'm just going to call this, so it's going to be income or expense. What should I call it? What should I call it? Any suggestions? Anyone want to give I'll let someone pick it. What do you want to call this column? Because it's either going to say either income or expense, but what should the column name be? Anyone have any suggestions or want to give me something to throw in there? Just to... anything? 3, 2, 1, and... okay, I'll just do my own. I'll just call it description. Description. Add another one here. Copy that. Control V. And like I said, quick keyboard shortcut. If you're just using Excel forms like the first time, you're trying to get better at it. Control C to copy. Control V to paste. Quick, easy. There's times where there are times I just use my mouse. I'm not gonna lie, to just copy and paste quickly because I've just been you save maybe 0.1 seconds at times. But it's good, especially if you're working with certain data. You want to move a little bit quicker. Control C, Control V helps you out a lot. So for this one, anything in here, since this is our income, we're going to type in income. And then we're going to go in here and just type in expense. And then we're going to apply it to the rest. So double click right there, double click right there. Cool. So we see everything right here. And as you can see, the income is going to be less than expenses because there's less types of income compared to types of expense. But now that's associated with this is going to help us a ton when we have to get to our pivot tables, our charts. It's going to help a ton so we could be like, okay, Excel, I want to look at only our income for this one. I only want to look at our expenses. So making sure you give it a nice description helps it out a ton. So what we got right here now is we have our income, our expenses. I'm going to turn both of these into tables because I do want to use Power Query here. And what I'm going to be doing, like I said before, what I'm going to be doing in Power Query here, this is not a ton of data. I mean, this only goes 85 rows here, 49 here. You don't really got to use Power Query for this. But since maybe some people haven't used it before, I'm just going to show some ways it could be used. In order to do that, though, I want to turn it into tables. Oh, and also, let me save my work. Another thing, too. Don't forget to save your work every once in a while because Excel will do that too. So if you want to turn this into a table, let's say I just want to take income right here. Let's say I want to turn just this into its own table. Can anyone tell me? I'll give anyone maybe like 20 seconds. How do I turn just this into a table? Just this area right here. What do I have to do in order to turn just this into its own table? They're both going to be separate. But how do I turn just this part right here? Insert table. Okay. And what could be the keyboard shortcut to do that? Instead of going to insert and going to table, what is a quick way right now in 0.1 seconds that could turn anything in here into a table? All you have to do is select the data you want. So you click in anything in here. Any single one. I'll pick even right here, February. Control A. Selects the data you want. Or, of course, you could drag. But, of course, that's not the best practice, especially if you're working with thousands of rows of data. And then, yeah, Control T. And it's going to ask you right away the range. And, yes, is the right range. And does it have headers? Make sure it's checked off. And we're good. So that's our first table here. And one thing that's big, especially when you get the Power Query or pivot tables or anything like that, name your tables. Because it's going to ask you eventually, okay, do you want to combine table 1, 2, 3, 4? And you'll be like, wait, what's in 1? What's in 2? It's like, okay, let me just name it first, so we'll not get confused. Okay, so this is table 1, but we're going to just call this one right here. We'll just call this income. So anything in here that's the income table. I mean, it makes sense. So anything in here, it's going to be much easier when you have to connect or do anything in Power Query. If it has a name, so much easier. And then let's go into this one. Same thing. We click into anything here. I'll even go down to right down here. Was it J72? Control A. Selects everything I need. Yep, including the top. Control T. Data looks good. Has headers. Okay. And we'll call this one expenses. So that's nice and easy. So we have those two. What I want to do is there's going to be 3 things that I'm going to try and do in Power Query here. I'm going to extract the first 3 letters of month. I'm going to append the queries, meaning these 2 tables are going to stack on top of each other. And then third, I'm going to change the numbers here into currency. Now, a lot of this could be done right here in the home section. Like if I wanted to extract the first 3 here, I could use, for example, the left function, which will extract how many characters I want from the left, which that's a formula. I could also just simply copy and paste. Just copy and paste, put it right here. And then also I can just go into here and click in and turn it into a currency. But I want to treat this like I want to do the right practice. So if you're working with a data set that has much more data, has many more rows or columns, this would be a more proper way to do it. How to transform this table? So all you have to do when you want to create a table is you click into the cell that you want. And obviously, if it's certain parts of the data set, that's one thing. But if you want to go into the data, you click into anything in here. Control A to select the range you want, and then Control T to create a table. Or you can do the old-fashioned way and just drag and this and that, but that's just very poor practice. So we have this all set. Now I want to create my Power Query here. So all I'm going to do is go into Data. And all I'm going to do for this one is going to ask you, okay, get and transform data. So it's going to ask, okay, where are we getting this data from? So I'm just going to here and do click get data from file, from Excel workbook. Now actually, before you do this, make sure you save it. Save your work. Make sure it's all good in there so we could extract it from there. Get data from file, Excel workbook. And I'm going to drag it over here so you can, actually, I'll only do my windows. You can't see it. And then it's going to ask you which file you want to bring the data from. This is called, the name of this file I sent was Annual Budgeting Dashboard. So that would be the name of it. If you change the name of it, then it would be that one. But we're pulling in this exact Excel worksheet. So once we click import, I think I have to change my, let me change something right here so you see my full screen because it's not pulling up. Here we go. There we go. Now you can see my full screen. Let me start all over again so you can see what it looks like when you want to import it. So make sure your work is saved. Go to get data from file, Excel workbook, documents. It's the document I just had. And now it's going to look like something like this, right? So looking at this right away, it's going to give you a bunch of options here. Okay, if you click in each one, we see here, this is what we have going on. And what we have to think here is, okay, what would make the most sense? And you might think right away, and this is where better practice might come in. Ideally, ahead of time, you will not have these tabs already set up. When you are creating your own project, you're not going to know fully ahead of time what you're exactly be doing. So you might see here, like, okay, it says income, expenses, and it says this one's like expenses 1, income 2. That's because we have something in there with the same name. That's why there's a number afterwards. But if we look into here, it says there's nothing here, nothing here. It's because it's looking at these tabs. There is no information in there. What we want is these two right here, our expenses, which was right here, and then our income, which was right here. And we want to use both. We want to bring both in. So go up to here where it says select multiple items. Click into both of these. And we want to transform the data, which would be right over here. I forgot that my camera's over there. So because we want to take this data, we want to do something with it. We want to transform it, right? So we're going to click transform data. Give it a second. Let it pop up. And okay, so what we have right here, and like I said, I'm not going to spend a ton of time doing this. Probably only like a couple minutes. We have right here, they almost treat it like queries. It's like its own table. It's almost kind of like if you enjoy SQL, you will enjoy Power Query in a way because there's so many concepts in here that are similar to things you might find in SQL. And the first thing looking at this is, okay, we see income, which is right here. And we see expenses right here. I want to create this. I want this to be one large data set. I don't care how it's. I don't care about the order it's in. I really don't care at all. I just want to be one data set. And there's one simple way to do it. What we could have done before is just copy and paste it, but of course we don't want to always think that way. We got to think what's the more proper way to do this. If you know SQL, a common command you'd use in SQL for this is the union function, where you're just putting together two tables, two databases, two queries into one. Same thing here. We're going to append the queries. It's the same thing as using union in SQL. And how it's going to work out is because we have the same title, we have the same headers, month, title, description, amount for both, and they're in the same order. So all we're going to do is basically we're stacking the income on top of the expenses to just be one large table. So all we're going to do for that is go to append queries. Append queries right there. And it's going to say, okay, what tables we want to append. We'll do income. And, expenses. Click OK. Why didn't that do anything? One second. Go back. Okay. Let me try this out real quick. So income, current, expenses. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I knew I was doing something wrong for a quick second. So what we have right here now, I'll kind of go back if anyone wanted to see. But what we did right here is want to append queries, and we basically put it like this. We put the income one up top. Okay, we want the income one being on top as what we have right here, and want the expenses to follow underneath. So we have right here, after I put that through, now we see if I could see really quickly. Starts at January for income, scrolling all the way down. And then you see it changes then to expense right here in January. Because it's basically, like I said, they're stacked on top of each other. So we have everything that we need. The month that something occurred, and then the expense or income that went with it. So that's a one quick, easy way. Like, you gotta make sure, though, you have to make sure that the column names are the same. Because if they're not, you're going to have a bunch of nulls come back, and that's not going to be good. So that's why before I made sure I put the description to the right of title for each, I made sure it was all correct. Because, like I said, if you're not paying attention, a lot of issues can come in. So that's all good there. What I want to do now is I want to extract the first three characters from the month. And actually, what I'm going to do real quickly is I'm going to change this name to full data. Just going to call it full data. Just so I know, because when I put this back into our Excel file, this will be the full data set that we need. So I selected the month column, because this is what I want to do. I'm going to go to add column and go to extract, because like I said, I'm going to be adding a new column that I'll be extracting from the month column right here. To extract, and it's going to ask you a few different things, right? It's be a length, characters, last characters, a range, a text, before, after. So let's say that you want to extract anything before, after a comma, or you want to pull in the last 6 characters from this line. These are things that can be done via a formula in Excel. But of course, using something like Power Query, puts you in a much better situation where you're letting Excel do the work. You're not relying on a formula in case you might be typing something wrong. And also, a lot of this work can be automated as time goes along as well. So what we're going to do is the first characters. And so they ask you, how many starting characters do you want to keep? And we just want to do the first 3. So type in 3. Click OK. And there we go. I'm going to drag this over right here. You can see right here now, every single month we took the first 3 letters from it. So, of course, May only has 3 letters, so that's just a full month. But everything else is just the abbreviation. We're going to be using that, like I said, for the column headers to make sure everything is very consistent in the same size. So, it doesn't matter the name of it because we're not going to be using that for anything. But we could just call it... What do you want to call this? So it's the first 3 letters in a month. I don't really care too much about it. Let's just go... Nah, we'll just leave it. Doesn't really matter too much. Like I said, you could change it to whatever you want. You could do like month abbreviated or something like that. You put it however you want. It doesn't really matter too much in this situation because we're not going to really be relying on the column name too much. But we're all good there. And then what I want to do for this column is I want to change this into a currency. So clicking into amount, going back to home, data type, I'll just do currency. So I turned it all into a currency and we are all good right there. So that's just a quick little easy way to use Power Query. I mean, a lot of these things can be done from a clean perspective, just using formulas. And especially if you're not using a ton of data, you probably don't need to do something like Power Query. But there's just some ways that if you want to understand what could go into it, I mean, there's so much more you can do in here. Merging queries, basically like you're doing a join in SQL. You can transform your data by reversing, counting, replacing values. So much things can be done in here. And it's not so much reliant on you using formulas to do it. So Power Query is very powerful. There's so much you can do with it. And we're done here. There's everything that we need. So let me just go into File and close and load. Give it a second. Okay, cool. So it gave us both the expense 1 and full data. Like I said, we don't need expense 1. This did not stay as a currency. Huh. We'll have to do something with that one. So expense 1, we could get rid of that. So right click, just delete that because we don't need it. Cool. And then for data, we could just hide that since we also don't need it. But I don't want to get rid of it because that's our original data in case we have to go back to it. So I'm just going to hide that just in case we ever do need it. So let's see what I want to do here. So I do want to change it. For some reason, it did not stay with the currency. Quick, easy way. And all of these do not now... In reality, a lot of things that we purchase in life come with, they're never a perfect dollar amount. There usually is some cents at the end or something like that. But in this example, it's all whole numbers. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to change all of this into, I'm going to do accounting for a type of number, and I don't want any decimal places. So actually, do I want to do accounting? No, I'll just do currency. So I'm going to click into the first one, E2. I'm going to do Control-Shift down to select the data I want. And that's everything that I need. I'm going to go up here to the dollar sign right here. Actually, no, let's go up to number, currency. And then I'm going to get rid of these extra decimal places or the cents. So it's only the currency and only the dollar amount. So we're all good with that. Let me just save that. And it looks like we are good to go. Okay, we did our little cleaning, got everything the way we want. And like I said, when you're putting this all together for yourself, since it's it's April, you have time to figure out what works best for you and the format you want. If there's anything else you want to put into it. But as this goes along, as long as you just keep inputting your information, all of your charts and all of your information will just upload on its own. So as long as you get it situated in the beginning, it took about, 20, 25 minutes. And I was just, took my time with it. Set it up well the first time, you'll never have to do it again. So we are all good with this. Now let's get to the fun stuff here. Dashboard, we're not going to be touching this yet. And there's a few ways we could go with this. There's a few. We could start with our charts. We could start with our information. It doesn't really matter which one. Does anyone have any, let me also change this to, what was it? Let me change this to just my window here. 1 second. Cool. So anyone have any suggestions? Do you want to do the charts first, or do you want to do basically the pivot tables and lookup functions first? Like, what do you want to do first? Anyone have any suggestions or anything like that before I dive into it? Charts. Okay. You want to do charts? Pivot tables, lookup first. Okay. So we got 2 to 1 right here. We got 2 for the charts, 1 for the lookups. Okay. Well, we're going to do pivot. I forgot. We're going to do pivot tables for the charts too. So it's really like lookups or the charts. Pivot tables. Okay. Let's get one more. See if one more person come in and give us like a tiebreaker here. Just want to see. Lookups. Okay. We'll do the lookups first. Okay. So there's first things first. I want to get this formatted. I want this to make sure it's the right way. And before I do any kind of formations or anything like that, I want to get rid of that. I want to put in the information I need for each of these cells I created. So for this first one, this gun, like I said, this one's be. Let's just start from the bottom. We'll just call this expenses. This one will be called income. This one will be called totals. And like I said, we do not have to. And everything I'm doing too, from what I do from my the type of the text I use, to the size, if I bold things or not, totally up to you if you want to do that as well. As long as information kind of falls in there, it's all just up for interpretation. You could add in any other color you want or anything you need. As long as it's set up, that's all that matters. So I have that there. And for each of these is going to be the abbreviation. So what I could do, and the issue with this is because they are merged and centered already, is that copying and pasting into these cells does not really work, because this is basically saying that this is taking up 2 cells. So the only way to copy and paste is if it's already in a merge and centered cell. So we'll just have to do this like one time. So just doing the abbreviation for each one. Just typing it in and clicking tab until we get to the end. There we go. Just typing it one time to do it. And like I said, merge and center. You want to be careful doing that. Like, I would be extremely careful. I'm only doing this because this makes the dashboard itself look way better. Especially I do it when at the end when you start seeing how the white borders come in, stuff like that. Doing it as a merge and center helps it way more. But in reality, it's not really smart to be using a bunch of merge and centers on a report, because it's going to break it from a copy and pasting, filtering. But just for this, because nothing in here will be moving, it's okay. But on a regular report, you don't want to be doing things like this too much. But once you have that all typed in, you can just take all of this, Control C, and just apply it to these 2 here. So you have your months all set and everything like that. How I want to do that is, you know what? We'll do the edits to each one, so we're not doing them all at once, because I don't want to forget about anything or anything like that. Sorry, I got something. All right. But what we're going to do here is let's take all of this, and we're going to leave it as 11. I'm going to italicize it. Oh my gosh, my grammar's awful. I'm going to bold it, and I'm going to put it right in the middle. So these 2 right here should be all lined up, so it's right in the middle of the cell. I italicized it and I bolded it, and I'm going to apply that to the others as well. Make sure both in the middle. Make sure both in the middle. No, forgot to italicize that. I'm going to do that real quick. Cool. Save it just so I don't forget. So that's all set up for the months. And this is going to help us when we do our lookup functions. This is going to help us a ton because that's how we're going to look up our information off this using this. Because if we didn't put that in there, we would have to use the full month, and that would have not worked out very well. So we have to think now, what do we want to put in for the, I think this, what I did with this is I also bolded these two, bold all these, and I underlined them. So also underlining them here, underline them there. I probably will, because like I said, at the end, all these borders will not be here. Everything you see will not be here. So once I take away the grid lines and the borders, this is going to look really small. So at the end, we can make this a lot larger, but I just want to do that for right now. So we have this all set, and like I said, the color choices that I have, it's all up to interpretation on how you how you want to do it, right? It's how I see it. The colors I like. I'm more of a navy blue, dark blue person. It's all up to how you ever want to do it. So what I'm doing here is we have to think now at the end of the day, this is going to be our income, our expenses, and then at the end is our savings. Because what we want to do is we're basically going to be pulling in these cells here are going to be pulled in from the sum of everything you have in income and expenses. And it's going to be income minus expenses will equal this cell. So that's all set up here. Let's bold that. Put in the middle. We'll make changes later, but I'm just make sure it's all set up right there, good to go. Actually, for this, I'm going to keep it to the left, so it's easier to read. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it in the middle right here, middle line, and I'm gonna do a line left. It's in the middle and to the left, and I'm gonna buff it out just like 1. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Just gonna buff it out by like 1. And the title I'm going to put for this is I'm just going to do income and expenses. Same thing, I'm going to bold that, put it in the middle, to the left. I'm going to bump it out a little bit. I'm going to buff that up to like a 14. I'm going to make this up to a 14 as well. Just because they're the more important parts to this. I'm going to buff that out a little bit. So we're good there. And then it's going to be pretty much the same thing. So for the income, what was it? I'm going to type in income sources. Same thing, going to just, it's a lot of reapplying things. Just seeing exactly what you like. Like for me, I'm going to keep the top ones, more important ones, to a 14. I'm going to put all the way to the left, but I'm going to bump it out by 1. Just so it's not completely sitting on the side of the cell. And then when we get to the end, we can make the adjustments based on the size we want. And then for down here, that's going to be just the totals. Same thing. Here, middle, bold, buff up to 14, push it out. Oh, 16? Never mind. Nope, went a little too high. There we go. Cool. Same thing here. Paste. And then for expenses, I'm just type in like expense type. And then, yeah, you could use Format Painter. You could use Format Painter as well. You could do that. But like I said, I don't want to take up a ton of time, especially with doing all these merger centers. I don't want to take up too much of your time with that. But yeah, you could use Format Painter as well. Definitely use that too. So left, bump it out. Middle, 14. Cool. So we have a good spot right here with everything we need, but we need to also know what are the different income sources we have, because we didn't fully look into it, right? We didn't look into everything we had here. We're going to get to that in a little bit. First things first, you guys said you want to do, it looks like some mixed opinions here. Let's do our income first. Let's get this part figured out. Okay, let's get our income figured out. So let's go over to our data. And also, before I move on, does anyone have any questions or anything like that before I continue working with this? Any questions in the meantime? Anything like that? Nothing? Cool. Okay. So we'll keep going. Like I said, any questions come up, by all means, continue to use the chat and everything like that. So income. All we got to do in here is we're going to use a pivot table. It's already set up as a table. So let's actually table design. It's already named full data. Okay, cool. So all we're going to do for this is you don't have to really select anything here. It's already a table. So anything that's selected in here, we'll pull from it. So let's go to insert, pivot table. And it's going to ask us, okay, where's the table coming from? Yep, we're using full data. We do not want to make a new worksheet. We already have one set up for us. So go to existing. And let's go to income, and you click into any cell you want. I like to go a little bit inside of it a little bit. So I'm going to go like D6. Click OK. Cool. So what I want to do here is figure out the types of income we have, because we didn't fully look into it. And I want to make sure how much did we make per month. What I want to do with this one is I want to make sure that the column, the column on the rows is using the first characters, not the month, because I want to do some kind of lookup off that. So what I want to do is I'm put the first characters into rows, which everything we have right here. And then what I'm going to be doing is I also want to filter for only to be income. So only income. And then for the columns will be the title. So these are the four that we have. We have coaching, consulting, full-time, and online courses. I want to put this in order. Weird dragon. Oh, okay, got it. I'll do full screen. Sorry about that. I'll go back a little bit. Can you see this now when I drag? Oh, because my face in the way. Okay, let me. Oh boy, I did not think about pivot tables. Okay, I'll put it right there. Okay, you should be able to see it now when I drag. Yeah, you should be able to see that now. Cool. Yeah, because I forgot. Of course, I put my camera to the bottom right because everything I'm using is to the left. But of course, I didn't think about pivot tables, which everything's to the right. And also, before I continue, I want to name this pivot table. I'm just call this one types _of _income. Because when we do our slicer later, I want to make sure it's all connected. And instead of saying table 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I want to make sure to have a name with it. So everything we need here, I want to move full-time job to the front, to the beginning. There we go. And you can always move that too, right? Because pivot tables, they'll just throw things wherever they want. It's not really in the most set order. But I want full-time job at the top because I know for a fact that is going to be the highest income that comes in. I always want for this one, for the income and expenses, you want to always have, when you're doing these type of calculations or these dashboards, to have the highest amount always on the top. It doesn't have to go in order afterwards, but full-time job, most likely for people, that is their highest amount of income that comes in. That should go to the top. And for expenses, usually the highest is housing. So that should also be at the top. Besides that, everything else could be whatever it wants to be. So we have that. We have everything we need. So we have full-time job, coaching, consulting, online courses. Let's now drag in the amount into values, and we're all good. Let me go into here, make sure I select everything in here, go back to home, turn this into a currency, get rid of the zeros, and we're good. So awesome. So we see right here, obviously, the pivot tables also will automatically do the grand totals for you. So you see for the income for the month of January, we have our grand totals here and everything. Now, we could, of course, just copy and paste this right into our dashboard. However, they're merge and centered. So we won't be able to do that. And I kind of did it on purpose so we could work on some like some lookup functions and stuff like that. So let's get to this. So let's we could take everything from here, and because this is our set for the entire year, we could do a lookup from this pivot table. However, I want to practice it with just in a regular table on its own. So all I'm going to do is select the information that I want, and all I need is just this right here. I don't need grand total. I don't want that at all. I just want this information. So I'm going to do Control C, put it right here. Let me go down here so everyone can see it. To D25, Control V, and there we go. So we have our information that we need. I want to create this into a new table. Control T, click OK, and there we go. So now we have the information we need. Let me change that into like a black font so we can see that. Cool. So we have everything we need from this data set right here. What we want to do now is the following. What we want to do with this is we're going to be pulling in information. Actually, you know what? We could... Let's make this a little bit interesting. Let's actually stick in the pivot table. Let's make this a little interesting here. I could kind of talk about how to do it from pivot table a little bit. We could do that. That's no problem. So what we want to do here is we have to enter these into our column names because that's what we have here. So let's go back to full data. Actually, sorry, dashboard. This first one will be full-time job, coaching, consulting, online courses. Coaching, consulting, online courses. Cool. Just like before, if we remembered, put them to left, middle, bold. Let's bump it out. Okay, so now we have everything set up. We have our types of income, our month, our cells. We're good to go and get to work. I'm going to try out a few different type of lookups. Now, if you don't have the updated Excel, you will not be able to do an X lookup. I'm still going to show it, but understand I know some people might not be able to. Now, let me move this over a little bit here. There we go. I understand some people might not be able to use this. So we're going to also be doing VLOOKUP and also, VLOOKUP and index match. So first things first, let's start off with a VLOOKUP. Everyone's favorite one, VLOOKUP. So what I want to do in here is I'm going to type into, just enter in this cell right here. I'm going to do equals VLOOKUP. Open it up. And what's going to want us to do is we have to find the lookup value. Now, the value that would be is Jan, which is January right here. So we'll click into Jan, do comma. It's asking for the table array that we want to do this from. Now, a way that I like to do lookups, I like to use this right here. The insert function one. I just find it's a little bit easier to keep it organized, to know what I'm working with. So I'm going to do that right now. Go to insert functions. And now I'm going to, okay, where's the table from this information that we're trying to get this from? So I'm going to go to the income tab right here. And now here's the thing about pulling from a pivot table is not usually, should I say, the best way to do it because they could collapse. It'd be a little bit dynamic. But for right now, it's okay, in my opinion. So what I'm doing here for the table array is want to select where does this information be coming from. And it's be coming from all this right here. Okay? Now, if you want to keep this set to the way it is, way you can do this is you cover the entire table array and just click F4. So it'll always stay in that spot, no matter what. So of course, in the future, if you make changes, if it's an additional month or additional type of income, this will have to be changed. This all would have to be changed. That's why I put it in a regular table is better, because tables can also change once you enter a new row or a new column. But we're going to just stick with pivot table for right now. And then the column name, so looking at this, okay, which of these column names are we looking for? And full time is the second column. So 2. And then for the range lookup, just type in false. And there we go. Let's go back to income. And we see right here, get rid of that. We see right here, just once again, this is exactly what I did with the VLOOKUP. I wanted to look for Jan with January. That was F50. I want to pull from this exact table right here. I selected a range I want. I wanted the second column to come up, which was full-time. Row labels is 1, full-time is 2, 3, 4, 5. And false. False meaning I want to be an exact match. And we see 5,000, and yes, that is correct, 5,000. So I'm going to click OK. And there we go. That's how we apply our VLOOKUP. And like I said, the only way the VLOOKUP will work is if your lookup function is in the first column. This was the first column. If this was anywhere else, you would have to use an index match or an XLOOKUP. That is one of the biggest issues with VLOOKUP. I do use it a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Even though I have XLOOKUP to use, it's bad memory. I use VLOOKUP a lot. I go out of my way to use it sometimes. But the only way to use it, because it's looking vertically, is it has to be in the first column, which in this situation it is. So I want to find a way how I could apply this, though, to the rest without, should I say, I don't want to be typing into all these cells over and over again. So let's see what happens when I drag this across. Oh, look at that. And we see it works because every single time this goes across, this stays the same. The data itself stays the same. The column stays the same, so this will always stay with it. But the lookup one, this is coming off F50. This one's coming off G50. This one's coming off H50. It applies it all to the rest. So you're all done there. You are all done with full time. And the reason why this is all set up well is because coaching should be the third column, which we see. Coaching is the third. Consulting is the fourth. And online courses is the fifth. And if we really wanted to, we could do total. We could do total as well. However, I don't want to do that. I just want to do a sum and keep it nice and easy. I don't want to look up a total off a pivot table. But we're all good with that. And then actually all we're going to do here is we're going to drag this down to coaching. And let's say NA, right? It is pulling in from, because it says right here, if we take a look at this, it's pulling in from F52, which is right here. So of course that's not going to work. H lookup. Yeah, I don't know why. I actually have never maybe used it once just to try it out. But I think like the thing with lookup functions, I think like some people are very strong with index match. Some people are very strong with VLOOKUP because not everyone has the ability to have XLOOKUP on their Excel. And also a lot of reports have older like VLOOKUPs on it, so you don't want to mix in XLOOKUP too much. I don't use HLOOKUP, and it's not for a certain reason. I just think that when you learn, you kind of stick with something and you just go with it. It's like anything else. It's like if you try to learn a sport, the way you might throw a baseball is different than someone else. The way you want to swing is a little bit different than someone else. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just that's just how you learned and you just stuck with it. So I think like for me, if I were to use HLOOKUP, I think at the end of the day now, I just use XLOOKUP because it's like, why even have to do one or the other? I'll just use XLOOKUP and I can just get it done way quicker without having to try to do too much. But I just think when I started learning Excel, especially for the people on my team, they all use VLOOKUP. And they're like, this is how you do it. This is how you use it. And I just did it that way because I was taught and I did it so much. So I think that's kind of like why I use it a lot. It doesn't really matter. As long as you get the job done, it doesn't matter. It's just that you, at the end of the day, want to continue to think smarter, not harder at the end of the day. So what I want to do here is I want to make sure I just update this to V50. And if I want, I could just, I could also, the only problem is I don't want to use F4 to lock this in, because if I lock this in, then the rest will also just pull from F50. So all you gotta do for each one is just continue changing that. And then I just gotta change to 3 since coaching is the third column. Enter. And let's just double check that's right. And yeah, coaching in January was 200. Yep. So let's apply it to the rest. Cool. We're good there. And just keep, rinse, repeat. Just keep changing that to F50. And like I said, because we locked this in as well, this data range will not change for anything we do. Change this to the 4th column. Consulting, let's just double check. Consulting, 1200, yep. Let's apply it to the rest. And then online courses to finish it out. Change that to F50. And then that's the 5th column. Cool. Oh, clicked a little too early, my bad. Awesome. Okay, so that's why I just know VLOOKUP the best just because I've been using that for so much. Quick, easy ways to just see how, making sure your pivot tables are aligned with the data you try to pull in and where you're trying to put it. If you do that correctly, we pulled all the information in. If I went without having to, if I wasn't like leading a workshop, that could have been done in, 30 seconds, right? It just takes a little time to set up how you want to come in, but as long as it's done correctly, you could work with VLOOKUPs very quickly with that. And index match too and XLOOKUP, but it's all about how your data is constructed and how it's put together. So what we're going to do here, let's do a quick sum of this and that. Cool. And just apply the rest because that will work as its own. Yep, and we're all good. And what's also good with this too is that if this pivot table updates, because it's coming from this full data, like let's say you, for example, in May, you're like, wait a second, I actually got a $1,000 bonus I didn't put in. Let me update that to $6,000. Well, then this will update too. This will update as well because it's coming from a pivot table. As long as it's refreshed, it will update. So that's one of the benefits of pulling from pivot tables, because it will always update if something changes, or if you're currently, we're in the beginning of April. Let's say every single time you update something, you put something in, this will update as well. So let's go here. Let's select everything we have. We're going to put this in the middle. We're going to bold it. Let's turn to a currency. Let's get rid of the zeros. Nope, wrong one. There we go. Cool. So, okay, we are good. We have our information there. I'm also going to make these a little bit larger. How much larger? How much can we get before it gets really bad? 14. Yeah, that's fine. Cool. 14. So we're all good there. Let me save my work. Make sure we're all good. And just so I don't get too ahead of myself, we can already pull in our income right here. So all we got to do with this is just do equals and then click into the cell right here. So every single time that this changes, this will change as well. Income, apply that. Put in the middle, bold, and we'll leave it right there. Cool. Okay, so we have income down. Now let's do our expenses. It's going to be the same thing, basically. Same thing as this, except it's going to be different rows for our types of expenses, and our description will be expenses. And actually what I'm going to do here too, I'm going to put month in as a filter, just because later when we do our slicer, I want them all to be associated with that. So we're all good there. Let's go back to our full data. Same thing, we're going to click anywhere in here. Doesn't matter. We're going to click insert, pivot table, do existing, go to our expenses and click, like I said, anywhere in here. Doesn't matter too much. Click OK. Let me move my camera so I can go over here. Cool. Okay, so like I said, it's basically the same thing as income. Same exact thing. Want to make sure description matches expense, month, all, and then will be the same thing. The abbreviated months on the left with all the types of expenses on the row on the columns. So let's go here. Let's go just right away. Month for filter. The description. Make sure we put that to expense. Let's put the first characters in rows. The title in columns. Amount in values. Okay. So we see right here. Wait a second. Might have a little bit of a problem here. So the information here is a little bit strange. There's no way that makes sense. Let me go back to our full data and make sure what we got going on here. Oh, okay, I see. It's stacked it on twice. Oh, not a big deal. So we can see right here. You can see right away. I mean, I don't know about you, but some of these numbers are ridiculous, right? That makes no sense. And that's something you can see right away. Where if you're like, wait a second, I don't. That doesn't look right at all. That's not what I put in. We can see right away that we see that the expenses starts at line 50. When we get down to December, it repeats itself. So all we're going to do here is just go down to 134. Let's just take everything here since we don't need it. And let's just get rid of it. So click delete. Cool. Now we're all good. That should be all good now. Go back up. Let me just save my work again. And all I want to do now is go back to this pivot table and let me go to analyze and refresh it. And there we go. We're all good. Cool. So that's something to look at too. I think I know when I went to Power Query, I was like, wait a second, why didn't it append? I felt like, and I feel like I realized I did it twice. Now I look back, I realized I did it twice. So just something to look at. And you see right there with the refresh button, anything you do in this full data, anything that comes from here, as long as this changes and as long as you go back to your pivot table and go to pivot table analyze and click refresh, it'll automatically refresh itself for you. So we're all set to good. We're all set to go here. Let me change all of this to the currency. Cool. Let's see here. Housing is the most, so I want to move that to the front. Move housing to the beginning. And to be the same thing. This one's a little bit more. We got 6 different expenses. So we're going to do housing, cable/phone/internet, car expenses, entertainment, groceries, other, and utilities. Okay, let's go to our dashboard. Let's go housing, cable/phone/internet. Want to make sure it's in the right order. Car expenses and then entertainment. Let's go back. Entertainment, groceries, other, utilities. Groceries, other, utility. Actually, you know what? Let me do utilities there and do other on the bottom because that just makes the most sense. So let me go back down to expenses. Let me move this. Can I move this to the right? Move down technically. There we go. Yep, good. That should make sense. Other should be at the bottom no matter what because it has no affiliation with anything else going on. So that makes sense. So we're gonna do a couple things here. It's up to you guys. Do you want me to do? I could do both if you want me to, but we could do an XLOOKUP and an index match. I'll be honest, you only use index match maybe a couple times because I just do VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP all the time. But we could do both, one or the other. It's up to whatever you all want to do. So any suggestions to anybody on what type of lookup you want to do for this one? Since we already used VLOOKUP. Any suggestions or anything like that? Going once, going twice. Any suggestions? Index match, XLOOKUP, we could do either one of those two. More practical, yeah. I mean, more practical. I mean, it doesn't really, in this situation, it doesn't matter. The lookup, they all have pros and cons, right? And I think that's a good way to look at it. What's more practical? In way of flexibility, I would probably rank... technically, index match has the most flexibility, technically, but XLOOKUP is, I think, a little bit easier to understand. there's less to go, and also you could handle errors with XLOOKUP. And then VLOOKUP is at the bottom, but that was everyone's like, when most people started learning it, that was like one of the first main lookup functions that people used. So I think that's why I had such a huge following at first. But let's do an XLOOKUP for the first couple, and then on the bottom I'll do an X match. Or actually, you know what? Let's see. First of all, actually, let me bold this push where I want to go. Okay. So yeah, I think I'm gonna be trying out. Let's do an index match. I think I'm trying to think of how I want to do this. I think I want to do an index match. Yeah, let's try it out. Let's do an index match. So let's do equals index and the array. So with the array, I think the array of how, like I said, I don't really use index match too much. So let's give this a shot. Let's see if I can do this all on my own without having to think about it. Index match. So what I want to do here for the index match is the array. I believe the array would be right here. The array would be there. Let me just make sure I F4 that and keep that right there. Yep. And I'm going to do match. The match array is a column we want to return. Yeah, so yeah, housing. Yeah, so I was right. Yeah, because I want to return. It's going to be one of the, right? I think then it would be housing because I want to be one of these right here. So I believe it would be housing. And then match. And I don't know why. Index match, like I understand. Like I think I've used VLOOKUP so much that I've just never allowed myself to try to do anything else because I'm like, I just don't want to try it out. But yeah, so match, lookup. Yeah, the lookup then would be the housing column, right? Wait, so housing column. But wouldn't the lookup be the value would be, yeah, the housing column. And then the array would be here. And then is that 0? Oh boy. Yeah, no. Yeah, I did that wrong. Let's do good old XLOOKUP. I'll get that right eventually. One day. So the XLOOKUP, I want to look up the January. And then the lookup array. This was just, I find this to be so much easier. Lookup arrays right here. And the return should be right here. Yeah, so much easier. I don't know why. I just think XLOOKUP so much easier because with this one you're just trying to find the lookup value, which was the Jan. Where's it coming from? What should you return it with? I just truly find it so much easier, and I think doing it in the insert function tab right here way easier to visualize it too. Because we can see right here that it just makes total sense, and it is correct. The answer was 2100. I just find it to be way easier. And like I said, with the index match, I think where I get confused, it's not that I find it hard. I just think that it, like the way the flow of it, that I feel like, okay, like I'm doing look up here, I have to find it here, and like I get the flexibility, but I just find it just something about it doesn't click in my brain right away. But yeah, I just find the XLOOKUP and VLOOKUP just be a little bit easier for some reason. So we have right here is our housing. Like I said, I want to apply it to the rest. So I'm not going to work with anything here. I want this to stay the same right here. And I want this also to stay the same. So F4 should work. Yep, all good. Cool. So that's all good there. So we have our housing for each of the expenses. That worked out. So now let me go drag this down to the cable, phone, and internet. See how that looks. And same thing here. We always want to look it up off of 66. And looking at this again, if we open this back up, the lookup array, that's correct, but the return array is going to be a little bit different. So we got to think here, the return array and the expenses. This is F9 to F20. So all we got to do here is just go back in, change just this to F, change this to an F as well, and just apply the rest. And just keep going all the way down, changing that once again to 6. What's after F? We got G coming up. And that's all it is. Just reapplying over and over. Nice, easy way to work with this. And that's especially when you're working with data sets that could be possibly a little bit more difficult to work with. Being able to just go in here and understand how data works, the column names, make sure everything is set up in a good way. Very easy to just get in here and reapply. And like I said, the way you set this up, it just takes, the first time just takes a little bit of time to set it up. But then after that, it's pretty simple. You just let the pivot tables and the lookups do their thing, and you're in a good spot. Same thing here, just keep reapplying. 6 after I, oh god, what's after I? H-I, J, right? J. Good, J. We're almost done. Bring this down. Oh, that one was fine. Oh, no. Never mind. 6, J, and then K. And we're good. Cool. So like I said, that's why when you set things up well with your column names, move this back over. I keep forgetting about that. When you set up your column names in a great way with your pivot tables and your sheet as well, it's very, very simple to keep applying it to different rows and let just Excel do its work, right? Like for this example, this one's a little bit different. Just because of how because VLOOKUP looked off a column name, so that number is very easy. Actually, we probably could have gotten this done way quicker with just a VLOOKUP compared to XLOOKUP. And I'm sure with a index match, it'd be a little bit similar to what we did with our XLOOKUP with changing the array every time. But like I said, with this one, we looked it up based off a column number. This one was based off the exact things we're looking for. And like I said, because we use F4 to lock these in, it always would be applied to every single one. The one thing that would change is the what we're looking this off of every single time. And that's applied because we're moving horizontally in Excel. So we're all good there. Now do equals sum, and just like before, add this all up, close it off, apply it to the rest, and we're all good. And let's turn all of this just like before. Let's bold it, turn it to a currency, take away our zeros, put in the middle, and let's keep the bottom a little bit larger. Cool. So we're all good there. And just like what we did up here, let's just do equals and bring in our totals from there. Let's apply it to the rest. And then like here for savings, like I said, all we gotta do for savings is take our income minus our expenses, and we should know exactly how much money we saved. So let's just do that. Let's just do equals F40 minus F42. Enter, and we're all done. Cool. Let's bold that, put it in the middle. Let's make these a little bit larger, just like the rest. Cool. So, like I said, if you were to do this on your own without obviously having someone like me like speaking you to do this could take you to 10 minutes at most to set it up. It's just because they're merge centered, it's not as easy to work around on. And if you just want to have a pivot table instead of this kind of design, you can do that too. I'm just doing this because of like the visual presentation of what we're doing. But yeah, I mean, we have all of our numbers set up and they're all attached to pivot tables here. all attached to a pivot table. This is also all attached to information down here. So anytime you change something in your data, all you have to do is refresh if any of the data changes, you refresh your pivot table, this information would change too. So this is all set up and good to go. I know I've been going for a little bit. Does anyone have any questions or anything in general about the lookup functions, the information you're seeing, or anything like that? Is there any kind of questions yet, or anything like that? Of course, at the end, I can answer any other random questions that come up or anything like that. But for right now, is there anything else that's come up that you're seeing that you didn't know before? Things that you saw that you could change? Anything like that? Okay, cool. So save that again. It's already saved. Okay, so let's think here a little bit. This is where our title is going to go. This is where our description is going to go. Slicers will go here. Can auto refresh? Yes. So with the auto refresh, it's all right here. All because in Power Query, when you go to your table design, you could do your refresh. There's a way you could do an automatic refresh where it could be like every day it's refresh or something like that. However, with this, because it's information that you are putting in yourself, this is something that probably you don't need to do an auto refresh for. You just refresh it every time you enter something in. But all this works is because these pivot tables are set up to this data source. As long as this source gets updated, all you got to do is go to your pivot table. You click into it, pivot table analyze, and just refresh. And then that pivot table will refresh because of your new data. So if you add in a new month, or if you realize you made more money, or you didn't make as much money, this will update on its own, but it's all based off your data source here. So as long as this gets updated, all you gotta do is go into your pivot tables and click refresh, and it all works on its own. Obviously, if you're working with a much larger data set, I would do some kind of daily refresh. If you were doing, let's say, a huge data set and multiple people are entering information on there, then an automatic refresh makes sense. But in this case, as long as you just click the refresh button every single time you want to update it, that's probably fine. I wouldn't go out of my way to do anything crazy with an auto refresh. But okay, so we have everything there. So let's start making some charts here. Let's have some fun. Let's have some charts. So let's go back to full data. Let's start with our income streams one. So let's go to full data, click anywhere in here. Let's go insert pivot table, existing, and go into income streams, click anywhere you want. Click OK. So what I want is, I want to see for each month, what did the income stream look like? So what I got to do here, what I got to do. So let's see. It's going to be similar to this. However, I want to have my own pivot table for this one. I want to have its own because I don't want the same pivot table affecting, let's say, a different amount of information or a chart. I want it to be separate. So it's basically the same thing as this, except I don't want the grand totals on there. I don't want that at all. That's going to affect it big time. So it's going to be the same thing as before. We're going to move our first characters to rows. We're going to do our title columns. Let's make sure we filter that really quickly for income. And let's make sure to put month up here for filters. And then let's say move that to the front, to the beginning. And then values, amount into values. Same thing. Change that into a currency. And let's say I don't want, how do I get that again? Oh no, did I forgot to name that pivot table? Oh no, did I forget to name it? Oh, I apologize. Okay, so on the expenses, so I named this one types of income. I'm going to be calling this one, instead of pivot table 2, just types. Oh, I'm just calling expense types. There we go. And we'll go back. And I don't want grand totals off rows and columns. Yeah, I don't want that. Don't want that at all. So we're good here. Let me name this income chart. So that's what I'm using that for. And I'm going to insert a pivot chart. I want to do a stacked bar chart. Yeah, let's do a stacked one. Let's do that. Let's see how this looks. Now, there's a few things in here we could do. We could leave the blue one here. It's all depending on how you want to do this, right? If you don't care about the full-time job as much, you would get rid of that one, right? If you care about it, that's fine. In this situation, I'm going to just keep this all as one. This is a situation where if you care more about, let's say you have several streams of income coming in, right? And you care about how each of those are performing, then all you gotta do is take away full-time job. But in this situation, let's say you want to look at how everything is doing performed with each other and really can see if it makes sense. We're just going to keep it like this. So what I'm going to do is, I don't know if I want to format it all yet, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it. I'm going to right click and cut. I'm going to at least put it on the dashboard right here. I'm at least going to put it here and see. Now, of course, I'm going to make some changes later, but I'm at least going to put it here and, keep working with it as I go. Actually, you know what? I'll make changes now. I don't want to get to a bad habit and do them all at the end. So what I want to do here is I'm going to leave the numbers here on the side. I don't want all these field buttons. So I'm just going to right click on any of them. I'm going to do hide all field buttons on chart. It makes so much more room. So much more room. I want this. Do I want this on the right or on the bottom? I'm going to put on the bottom. So I'm going to format legend. Right click on there. Format legend. It's going to ask us where we want to. I keep forgetting about my camera. Sorry if I keep getting away. It's going to ask us right now itself on the right side. But I'm going to put this on the bottom and see how it looks. Yeah, that's better. That's going to be better. And obviously, like I said, when we take away these grid lines and everything, it's going to stretch out a little bit more. But like I said, these lines are just for us to reference for now. I'll put that there. Let me bold it. Bold. Make sure it's like a black font. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to add in a title. So I'm going to click that plus button. Click to do chart title. And let's call this... how did our income streams perform? Okay. So you might wonder, like, okay, so I also don't like why it starts off as a gray. Make sure it's like black font. You might wonder why I capitalize income and streams. I did that because I want to make sure that those are the most important aspects we're looking at in here. That this chart is all about income streams. So what I also want to do with this is I want to take this right here and I'm going to bold it so it stands out a little bit more. So that's all good with that one. Like I said, we can make more changes in a little bit. So we're all good with that. Now let's think. We have income streams down for that one. Now let's do, and like I said, the colors and everything too, you could change as well. I could show you how. You just click into each one you want. Like this one is currently a blue for full-time job. Let's say I want to change the colors around. Let's say I want to change this into a like a lighter blue, or that's kind of more of a gray. It's like this darker blue right there. That's how you can change it. If you want to change the colors to how you want to do it, just remember to be a little bit careful with the type of colors you're choosing. Make sure not to use, like, for example, this has like a dark blue, a gray, orange, and yellow. That might not be the best practice for color choices. So I would really make sure to Be careful with the colors you choose. Make sure they're not too strong. Make sure people who are colorblind can also be able to see what's going on and not be confused with the different colors. So just be a little bit cautious of that. But I'm going to leave that right there because, like I said, for each time that you want to go in and change the color, you click onto the exact one. This one's set for online courses. You click here to fill, and you put in the exact color you want. And you can decide however you want to do that. For this, I'm just going to leave it right now because at least the chart's all set up and good to go. Next one is you're not getting the X lookup. So what do you mean by that, not getting the X lookup? Do you mean like you're not sure like about it, or you're not able to use it? What do you mean like X lookup? Like what do you mean by that? Okay, well, I'll give you a check. I'll give you a chance to respond. But like I said, let me know what you mean by not getting X lookup. Either you probably don't have access to it, or if you have a question about it, I could help answer that too. So we have income streams down, and now what I want to do is I want to create a donut chart here for the savings percentage. So what I'm going to do here is go back to full data, click into anything I want here, go to insert, pivot table, existing worksheet. Click anywhere here and click OK. This one's going to be a little bit easier. So all I got to do here is bring in the month. Just do month. And then I'm going to be doing description in rows and then amount in values. Because I just want to know how much expenses we had altogether and how much income did we have altogether. So I have everything we need here. But what I want to do with this one, it's a little bit different, is I want to create almost like my own area right here, because what I need is the percentage. I need the percentage of the savings, right? Because we have how much we have the numbers, but we need to know how much money did we actually save altogether. So what we're going to do here is just pull in what we had, get pivot data, yep, expense data, and then the percentage. So how much percent money do we save altogether? All we're going to be doing with this is you're basically seeing how much money we saved. Actually, I forgot to do one more. Savings and then percent. How much money did we save altogether? Well, we just take this minus that, and that's how much money we saved. But what was the percentage? And all you can do for the percent is you take the savings divided by the income times 100. That's your percentage of savings. So all we do here is do equals our savings, divide by our income, click enter, and we get this decimal, which is 0.4356. All we gotta do is click in here and turn it into a percentage. I'm gonna leave it as a whole number for right now. So when we create our donut chart here, we're doing it based off this information right here. And all this is associated with the pivot chart. So there's no time that this gets updated by the month when we use our filter later. This will also change too. So when I put together this donut chart, there's going to be two parts to it. It doesn't matter if it's in a currency or not, because we're not really worried about that whatsoever. We have to think, what are the two parts of the donut chart have to be? And it has to be one part be the expense, one part the savings, because combined they equal the income amount. So what we want to do right here is just go into this area here, covering the expense and savings. Go to insert. Just go to this pie chart area. Go to donut. And we get this donut chart, right? We have to think once again, what is this chart trying to tell us? The orange area is the most important part. That is the percent we're actually saving. So what I want to do here is we're just going to cut this, go back to our dashboard, paste it right here. And the thing about this too is it looks like it's going to get kind of crammed, but it's not. Because what we're going to do is we're going to click into here, actually, and go to, what was it? Double click. And go to, what was it, border? We're going to do no border. and then no fill. Because now it looks like that it's just on its own. There's no border with it right now. So we could definitely move this right here without it looking too crammed in. Even a little bit more. Cool. And we can get rid of this since we know what we're working with here. Delete. And that definitely fills in a lot better. So what I want to do here is I'm going to make some color changes. I'm going to change this, let's say this orange into a, let's say I don't want to do the whole thing. What's it doing? I had this issue last time. Fill. Let me go back a little bit. Okay. Oh, wait a second. Okay, never mind. Sorry. So before you make those changes, make sure that your legend's still there, so you're able to specify which one that we are working with. And let's see, we're gonna change our savings into this dark blue. It doesn't really matter which one, but I kind of like this dark blue gray, darker 25%. I'm gonna pick that. And then for expenses, I'm gonna turn that into like a gray. Because I want to stand out. I want the dark blue to be like, okay, that is our savings percentage. That's what matters the most. The gray is what we haven't gotten yet. Blue is what we accomplished. So what I'm going to do now is click now into the legends. Now I can get rid of them. Now we're good to go. What I'm going to do for this one is change the chart title to what was our savings percentage. Let's see, can I make this a little bit? I'm gonna go back. Ooh, a little too much. There we go. Let's see. I'll make this a little bit larger. Come on. Not cooperating with me. I'll change 2%. Cool. And what I want to do here is, we see it looks like it's aligned enough. Let me just move this up a little bit. This looks a little bit better. Cool. Same thing, turn this all into a black font. And we're going to bold savings percent, since that is the most important part. So we're good with that. And so it's going to look a lot better when I take away the grid lines and everything. But I want to put right here in the middle the percentage. So all you're going to do for this one is go to Insert, Text Box, put that right here. And for this one, you want to make sure that when you're using a text box that you don't type into this right here. You go up to this bar right up here. Click equals, go back to our savings percentage, click into the percent, click enter, and we get our number right here. Other thing too with this is you don't want this to be filled or have any border. So once you're in your text box, go to shape format, go to shape fill, do no fill, and then outline, no outline. Since now you can see, it looks like it's almost floating on its own. Let's put this in the middle. Let's bold it. Let's buff it up a bit. Let's see how much we get. And if you think it stops a little bit, just make the box a little bit larger. Buff up a little more, and that looks good. So when we do our filter later, you'll be able to see that every single time that the month changes, this number will change as well. Let me actually also go into here and get rid of the fill as well. It's gonna look a little bit weird now, but trust me, it'll look just fine when all the grid lines go away. So we're good there. Now all we have to do is put in our pie chart. Let me move this actually a little bit. We get a little bit more room. There we go. Move this a little bit. There you go. Last up, we have our pie chart for our expenses. So let's go back to full data, go to insert, pivot table, existing worksheet, expense pie chart, click anywhere we want, and click OK. Same thing for this one. We go to the month, but just put month in there so we use it later for our slicer. And then let's put it in the description because we want just expenses. And then let's go put in title for the row and then amount for values. So we're all good there. Now once again, I don't want grand total. So we go to design, grand totals, off for rows and columns. And we have this right now. So like I said, this is the total amount for each. The thing is, I'm making a pie chart out of this, and most people probably do not want to do a pie chart in this situation. However, I think for doing something like this, it's very useful, even though that there are 7 different metrics to look at. I think it's fine to do a pie chart because when you're looking at percentages, which you're about to do, I think this is fine, in my personal opinion. So we'll click anywhere in here, go to insert, go to the pie chart area. We'll just do a 2D pie chart, and we're good. Let me cut this, put this on our dashboard, paste. Cool. And let's do just like the others. We do not need these field buttons, so you right click on any of them and then click hide all field buttons. So it takes up more of our room that we need. Let's bring this up a little bit so the title looks like it matches. There we go. So how much can I move this in without getting too crazy? Okay, so what I want to do now is, do I want this to be on the left side or the right side? Let me take a look. Let me go to Format Legend. Let's see what it looks like. I'm going to go to the left. Because like I said, at the end of the day, this is where it's going to end off. I don't want it going too much over, but also I don't want, see, that's what I'm afraid of that cable and phone getting cut off. That's fine. That looks good to me. Worst case, this probably can move a little bit. This actually can move a little bit. Yeah, that looks a little better. Making a little room, because I don't want this to go over on the side too much. Drag that a little bit right there. That looks good. Now I'm gonna move this a little bit. No, not that much. Good. Okay, good. That's much better. Much better. I'm gonna leave these to the left because I don't want the pie chart to be right next to the donut chart. That might get a little bit confusing. But we'll just go from there. So let's do this again. Let's go to no fill and no border. Let's take our legend and let's bold it. How much more? There we go. Good. And for the pie chart, what I want to do is I want there to be, I want data labels. Add in a data label. But I don't want it to be the number. I want it to be a percentage here. So let me right click on there, go to format data labels, and I want to be percentage. And I don't want the value, and I want it on the outside. There we go. Cool. Okay. Bold that. Good. Okay. So now what this is going to be set up with is for each of the expenses, instead of it being an exact number, since you have the number down here, if you really want to look at it, this will tell you exactly where your money is going. So 49% of this person's, all of their expenses going to housing. 12% is going to other, 8% going to utilities. It's just a good way to look at your information from a percent perspective. Because numbers are numbers, but sometimes you want to know exactly the percentage of where things are going. So for total, let's just call this where is our expenses going? Same thing just like the others. Make sure it's bold. I should have not bold, sorry. Black font. And we're just going to bold expenses. Okay. So I think, to be honest, we're not at a bad spot at all. We're at a pretty good spot here. So we have everything we need. What we're going to do really quickly now is we're going to add in some color down here. So we have this all set up. Our income streams, savings percentage, our expenses. Let's add some color down here now, right? I think it's time to definitely make this a little bit, should I say, better looking. So let's go here to our totals. And the same color we apply is going to be the same for all of these. Okay. What I'm going to actually do is I'm going to leave that right there in the middle. I'm going to take the first row here and I'm going to turn this into, what color do I want? I'm going to turn this into a light blue. Yeah, I'm going to choose this one right here. I'm going to do this into a light blue. And I'm going to turn this one into, since I like this navy blue color, I'm going to turn that into this dark navy blue. Now, it's going to be a little hard to see, of course. Now I can move myself back over a little bit since we're done with pivot tables. This might be a little hard to see, and that's because we're going to change this into a white font. It's a little bit easier to see. A little, good to switch up the colors a little bit. And we're going to apply that to the others as well. Go here. We're going to, actually, let me just keep it consistent here. Blue, white. And then let's go blue, white. And then we'll go up here. All I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to make this into a light blue. Make this into a light blue. All I would recommend is when you're doing coloring like this for Excel and you're trying to work on your labels, I like information that's really important to be kind of a little bit on the bolder side. I want to stand out, and I find this dark blue, navy blue color with a white font sticks out very well. And then the light blue does very well as a column header, just to keep it informed enough like, okay, this is where the column headers go, this is what we should be looking at. And then the dark blue is the information that's the most important. So we're all good there. Now, what I want to do is I want to do the grid lines. I want to get rid of grid lines now. So what I want to do for that is go up to View and uncheck grid lines. Looks a little bit different now, right? Looks a little bit different. I'm going to do one zoom out so it can look a little bit larger. There we go. Let me see how's my stream look on that. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, when you start doing these dashboards, you'll probably find yourself zooming out a little bit because you can see right here, I would have to zoom out. There's no way staying at 100%. That would be the most effective. But when you export it, it looks just fine. Even if you zoom out a little bit, it'll look just fine. So that's all fine. Let me, okay. Let's have some fun now here. So we could get rid of some of these borders now. Since we don't need this border right now, we could just go here and go to no border. Now it's on its own. No border. No border. And looking at this, we could make this larger now. You see, that's what I said before in the beginning is these titles, it looks like because they're in a cell, it looked like that they looked okay. But when you take away the grid lines, it's got a ton of room, right? So let me go here and just buff it up a little bit to like 14. Yeah, 14 looks good. And let's go 14. Cool. And now, my favorite part is this part. I love doing the no borders with, actually, we take away the borders and we'll put in all borders, but it's going to be a white border. And what's going to do is it's going to basically break up these cells. It's going to look, I like the way it looks. I like to do them a lot because I just think that they make them look like almost like its own blocks, and it's a little bit easier on the eyes instead of just seeing these grid lines all the time. So I'm going to go into here. I'm going to select this information. And I'm going to do for the line color, I'm going to do white. Go back up to here. And I'm going to go to, and we see right now that it's set up like this. Okay. It's set up like this. However, I'm going to put in all borders. And we get like that. What it does is, because this is white and here, there's no fill, it's not going to look like there's any borders, of course. But what this does is it creates this white border between each of these cells. And I personally think it stands out pretty well. So it's not giving you right results in your X lookup. Okay, so when I do these borders right here, I could definitely go back and show you. When I do these borders in 1 minute, I'll show you exactly the X lookup. You can let me know any questions you have with that. So because it's all set up right now, all we got to do is just go back into each of these and apply the all borders with the white border. That's applied there. And then one more applied there. Let me save that. So that's all set. We're all good to go down here. So when you're working with the X lookup, let me pull up this function window a little bit. When you're working with the X lookup, okay, so here's the example here. Let me actually go to this first one, makes it a little bit easier. When you're working with the X lookup, what you're trying to tell Excel is like, okay, what are we trying to look up in this situation? And with the X lookup, it could be multiple, right? It could be we're trying to find housing or January. For this one, I want to find January because of how our table is set up. So I chose F66, which is January. What I then am telling Excel, let me go to our expenses, is okay, the lookup array is okay, the word Jan, where is that located? In this area, where is it located? And I'm telling Excel, it's located in this area right here, which is the lookup array that I put in. I put in the F4 to keep it locked in on D9 to D20 so it could be applied to the other cells. So I told Excel, okay, this is where it's located. And it's like, okay, what do you want me to return it with? What should the result be? And I told Excel, I want the result to be E9 to E20. So wherever Jan is, which is right here, I want this, the $2,100, to be the result. That's how XLOOKUP works. I find it's a 3-step process. It's less steps than index match and VLOOKUP. But that's how the lookup array and return array works. You're just telling Excel, where are we finding this from and what should we return it with? That's how the XLOOKUP works in that situation. So we're all good there, and same thing here. So we could get rid of this. We just gotta do no border, just no border. Good. And now we get that nice clean looking dashboard. We're almost done. Almost done here. Want to add in here just our title. I'm just gonna do annual. Oh, that's right. It's coming out as white. Let me do that. Annual. Wait, why is that coming off weird? Go back in. There we go. Annual budgeting dashboard. Okay. And let me get rid of that borders since we don't need it anymore. And then for this, I'm going to put in. So I'm going to say something like, please. Oh, man. What are you doing with this? There we go. Black. Please use the filters to the right to look for the data you want. The filters are attached to the charts below. And then I'm going to wrap it, put it left, and bump it out. And same thing here, I'm going to take away these borders. I should take away all of this. Cool. So like I said, at the end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put like a certain color in this area. But actually, I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to go here. Let's say I want to take up this area here. I'm going to put in what color background? Let's put in that dark blue. I like, yeah, dark blue. I'm going to give this a white font and another white font. Okay. Let me buff this out a little bit so it's touching the edge. No, I do not want to do that actually. So you see right here with the merge center, I realized, okay, so I want it to be a little bit larger, but I need a little bit more room, right? So all I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to unmerge it. And I'm going to drag in the cells I want to merge it with. I'm going to put it right here. I want to include J. So merge the center. There we go. Much better. Much, much better. Put like 32. Yeah, that's better. Good. Okay, so we have everything we need. We're just missing one thing. So I'm going to get rid of this. make it a little closer. That's better. One more thing. I promise, one more thing. And it's our slicer. Okay? So what we want to do with this is we want the slicer to be associated with these three. The slicer will not affect the charts. This is all updated by pivot tables in your lookups. The slicers will only affect anything right here. So let's go pick out a slicer. And for that, we want the month, the full month for each one. So what I'm going to do for this, I'm going to click into anything in here. I'm going to go to pivot table analyze and go to insert slicer. Do it by the month, and we're good. I'm going to cut this and put it back on our dashboard right here. Okay, and we see that it's set up like this. It automatically come in a vertical slicer. I don't want to be vertical. I want, since there's a month, there's 12 months. This works out pretty well. I'm going to try to do 3 by 4. So I'm going to go to slicer, and it's going to ask for columns. I'm going to put 3 columns. Stretch this out a little bit. Take up a little bit more room. And the height, I want it to be a little bit taller. Takes up a little bit more room. That looks good. 0.5. So we have our slicer, but you see right now it doesn't look good. That slicers always give me trouble. Always give me, because I felt like the slicers for a while was okay, I understand it, but it took me a while to get to a point of making them into the way I want. So what we're going to do here is we want to format this because I want the background to match this dark blue I have. And I might want to do something with these choices here. First, actually, I want to report connections. This is almost like doing something in Tableau or Power BI. We're trying to connect slicers or filters to certain tables. So what I want to do here is right click and go to report connections. And it's going to give me a whole list, right? It's going to tell me the name, and obviously I forgot to name a couple of these. I got a little ahead of myself. But it'll tell you the sheet that the table's on and the name of it. So what do we want to associate this with? So expenses pie chart, luckily we have that. I would go back and name that pivot table to something like expense chart, just so that's a little bit more formal. But I want this to be affected, the pie chart. I want the savings percentage one to be affected, and I want the types of income to be affected as well. And then that should be fine. Should be fine. Income streams. Let me double check. The pie chart, income streams. I don't want income to be affected. Income streams, savings percentage, that should be fine. So let's just see how this works right away. Let's click into, like, for example, January. And you can see right away, it goes to however you want, right? The savings percentage that you had in January was 40%. This is how your expenses looked like. And you could hover over to see exactly how much it was in case you don't want to look at your chart. And you can see right here that housing in January was only actually 46% of your expenses. Let's say you want to look at March. March was, you saved more money, even though housing was more of your expenses. And it's good to just compare. And of course, too, with the slicers, if you want to select multiple, you just click this multi-select button here. And let's say you want to look at the winter months. So you do kind of like December, January, February. And you can see right there, that's how you saved. Let's say the winter was a little bit, July. You can see right away how you did in those 3 months. And you can see the comparables of these three. You can see that December, you made more money, but for some reason you didn't save as much. So you might want to look into other was way higher than usual. So that might be a reason why I look into what caused that to happen. So those are all set up fine. The slicers are all working, except I want this to look like it matches with that dark blue background. So let me go up to slicer, and I have this already set up. I made one already. I'm going to click into it and I'll show you how that worked. Because if you see this right now, this actually going a little too high. You can see right now with this, it matches the background. It fits right in. It doesn't stick out. It doesn't have the wrong color background. It matches with it. Would I do this differently? Yeah, I would do some stuff differently. But what you see right here is every time I hover over, it changes also based on the color I choose. The color will always change. So I'm going to go into the slicer and show you how you could do that. So we go into slicer, And then the way you do this, because you have to make your own slicer for this, they give you your own slicer to choose. Like you go here, here, there, but they don't match the background. They might stand out a little bit. So what you do is you go into modify and have your own type of slicer. So you tell us if there's many elements you can change with this. For the first one, it's okay, what do I want the whole slicer to look like? And I want the slicer to have a fill of the same color background as that dark blue I had. I want to make sure they match, because if they match, there should be no issues. That's all I care about for that one. For the header, I also put the header as a dark blue background because I want the header to match it as well. If, let's say, I don't, and I want the header to have its own color, let's say I put it as this like blue, this regular blue color. Let me click OK. Let me save it real quick so you can see. You can see now my header has that blue top. I wouldn't keep it. I don't think it really matches. But the header, that's where you change the colors based off the slicer you want. Go back to modify so we showed it again. Let me go back. Let me keep it as a dark blue again so I keep it there. And then we could do show what data related to pivot table. When you created the slicer, can you show what data you related to from? So what you're asking is, if I'm getting this right, so you do you want me to show you again how I associated the pivot tables to the slicer? Is that what you're asking? Like how I decided how to do that? If I'm getting that right? Okay, yeah, I can show you again. Let me cut that out. So it's kind of like using, like I used to use Tableau a ton on the job. I used to use it a ton, and it's kind of reminded me of a little bit of Tableau. So with this, it doesn't matter because all these pivot tables come back from the same data source. As long as the same data source is used, you can apply that slicer to whatever tables you used with it. If you're using multiple different types of data sources, it can't work. So with this one, of course, all of our information is from one data source, so it makes it way easier. So I could click into anything, and because all these have month in there, they all can work. So I just picked the first one. It didn't really matter. I picked this one because it has month in it. And I went up to Pivot Table Analyze, and I clicked Insert Slicer. And they gave us a choice on what do we want to use, and I want to do it by the month. And that's why I kept a month in there the whole time. I don't want people to filter by Jan, Feb, Mar. I want it to be the full month. So I click into month, and I have my slicer here. Right now, actually, I'm going to cut it and put it on my dashboard. I'm going to put it in the same format just so it's a little bit easier to see. So right now, if I do it, it's only associated to that one chart that I used, right? It's only associated to this data. And how we do that, if you want to connect it to more than one, you just right click onto it anywhere on there, and it'll say report connections, because right now you'll be able to make that choice onto how you want to connect it to other tables. And it's going to give you a choice right here on all the different types of data sources you can connect it to. And of course, I forgot to name some of these tables, so that's my fault. But it'll tell you what sheet that table is located on. And when I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, it's currently set up to the income chart. That's fine. That one's okay. But I also want the savings percent and the expense pie chart to be affected too. So I look at that and I'm like, okay, the savings percentage one, if I named it correctly, this would be it. I want that slicer to also affect the savings percent. And I also want it to affect the expenses pie chart. So now the slicer, instead of only affecting the income streams, will also affect the savings percent and the income and the expense pie chart. If I want to do more, I can click more. If I want my slicer to only affect a couple of them, I can do that too. But in this situation, you're able to choose which one they're associated with based off how you want to put together. So that's how you report the connections for the slicer and how you want to put that together. hopefully that answers your question. If you have any other questions about the slicer or the connections, by all means, let me know. I could try to explain that. I'll be done. This is pretty much done in like a minute, and then I could answer any questions or anything like that. So let me drag that out a little bit. And like I said, I'm going to, if I put it back the way that was, what you can do in the slicer is you can modify it the way you want. As I said before, the whole slicer, I want to match the background, so I made it that background color as I had with that dark blue. The header, I don't know, how would gray, I feel like gray might not look good. I feel like sometimes less is better. Yeah, I feel like in this situation, less is better with that. I'm just gonna go back to slicer and change that. Modify, header. I'm just going to make that the dark blue so it matches. And actually, I'm going to make the month. It's bolded. Yeah, it's fine. And then see right here, there's other settings. Like if you want it to change based off if you hover over it or if you click on it, it could change. There's many things you could do with the slicer. Let me go back in, modify, selected item with data. So what happens is you could change how the font looks, the fill. Right now, that's what the fill looks. I want if it's selected to be like a blue. Yeah, we'll keep that light blue color. And if it's unselected, then like a gray. What if I hover over it? What happens if I hover over it? Let's see what it looks. Yeah, that's better actually. So what's good about this is like every time I go over it, it'll change to the background color, and when I click on it, it bolds it out kind of in a way where everything else gets grayed out, and it's only focused on January. And there's so many things in the slicer you could change where if you want a certain color to be when you're hovering over it, if you want the color to change when you click on it, if you want to change based off if there's data in it. There's so many ways you could do it. And that's why I actually love working with the slicers, because you really can actually customize them in many different ways. So looking at this, let me zoom out a little bit. We are all done. That is our like dashboard. And I think like what we do too is I actually might extend this a little bit more. Yeah, that's better. I like that. So that's our dashboard right there. That's how we put everything together. We put together our expenses. We put together our income, our totals, everything here. Now, do you want me to show you what happens if we change some of the information in here? Like how that will work if you were to update something? Do you want me to show you that? If something happened in January, I have to change like what it would look like, how it would change. Yes, okay, cool. So I'll do that. So let me go back to, let me unhide the data one. Let's say, because I want to see how Power Query works here. We're gonna test this out together in a way. Let's say we're going to have to take note here because we're going to have to really keep an eye. So I'm going to change something in January with full-time job. Let me write this down and make sure I stay on top of it. So as we see right here, the full-time job is set to 5,000 in January. I'm going to put it to 4,000. Okay, I'm going to do that to 4,000. And currently in January, it's at 40% savings, and that number should change because that's going to go way down. So let's see what happens. Let me make those changes, see how it looks, just so you can see what happens. And like I said, this number should change to 6,600. That's changed to 4,000. Let's just see how this goes right here. So what I'll have to do here is go into full-time job and change that to 4,000. And I said, this Power Query is picked up by this worksheet. So every single time you do this, you have to do save, and then go back to full data, and this should update. Let's take a look. So refresh. Yep, right there. Yep, see? Change right there to 4,000. Because this is associated with these two tables. Okay? This is associated with these two tables. Let me also change. Let's say your housing in February was rough. Something happened. 3,400. Let's save it. Go back to full data. Refresh. And let's go take a look at expense for February. Yep, 3,400. See? Let me zoom in. You see that? Yeah. So like I said, every single time your data, because this Power Query is associated to these two tables. So as long as this information changes, as long as every single time you save it, because this Power Query is picking up from a saved worksheet, your work has to be saved. Your data is entered, save, full data, refresh. You can also schedule refreshes too with this. And so that's set up. Let me now, what I'll have to do is I'll have to update now because these are not updated. You can see right now, that's still 5,000. That's still 2,100. I have to update my pivot tables now. So let me go into here, pivot table analyze, refresh. There we go. That one's good. Refresh. That's good. Let's go. Refresh. 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 Let's take a look here. Oh, wait a second. Oh, man. Yeah, I created an issue. Let me get rid of this again. I'm sorry. Because I forgot. So every single time, well, yeah, what I'll have to go into the Power Query is I'll have to go back in and, because I appended it 2 times. That's why it went off. But let me just, sorry about that. I'm going to go back in here because every single time I saved it, it's going to keep popping up. So make sure if you have issues in Power Query, make sure to make those changes before saving it or redoing any work because it's going to continue to keep coming up. Do that. Now let me save it. Now let me refresh everything. There you go. Now that's better now. That's better. Refresh. Refresh. And let's go to our dashboard. And we see now that January is now at 4,000. Housing's at 3,400. And when we went to January now, we can see now our savings percent went down to 31%. Because we lost $1,000 in income. And our savings out in February was awful because your housing went up an extra $1,300. So this all could be automated. Like I said, the biggest mistake I made in the beginning was when I used Power Query is I appended it twice. So I basically stacked it on top of each other twice, which created extra data. But if done correctly, you can see right here that as long as your original data gets updated, that then affects your Power Query that you put together, which then gets affected from your pivot table. So think about that process. Original data, query data, pivot table. They all work together. Okay? So as long as the original data gets updated and then refreshed, then your pivot tables get refreshed. All your information should be updated in case something comes up or you want to add something into the future. So that is the budgeting dashboard right there. All set and good to go. And I think that this is something that could definitely be used on a portfolio. I'd be careful, obviously, not putting in your actual information. Do not put your actual, if you're going to post this somewhere or on a portfolio, do not put your actual income or expenses on there. Everything I did in here, I took the time and I made up my own fake data. Okay? If you do anything like this, create your own data, then that's fine. Because something like this, I'm not going to lie, from a lot of people I've talked to, people like seeing things that are relatable and can be actually used in real life. Okay, that's one example of a project to do. Not every time a project has to be something that's incredibly difficult to do. sometimes you got to get the interest of people who are viewing it. And if they see something like this, then would refresh all, update all data in the document. Yeah. So you could do refresh all. That's if you're doing multiple queries as well. But since there's only one, just quick. It doesn't matter which one. It could be refresh or refresh all. It doesn't matter. But doing something like this is something that people could use in their everyday life. People could really use this in general, and it's a good use of your data skills. So I think like seeing something like this is also professional. The use of the, not to, I not the most positive at times, but I like to think that this is pretty decent from a formatting perspective. The use of the visualizations, the slicer, the color, the font. It's a good use of Excel. And using this could really be able to show to employers or other people your ability to use lookup functions, to use different visualizations. It's extremely useful. Refresh all. It's just all you do is click into here, table design, and just go right here, refresh all. That's all. But it's like I said, it's all the sources in the workbook. That's all it is this. So if you're refreshing from a ton of different data sources, then yeah, refresh all. But since it's only these two, refresh and you're fine. That's it. But yeah, that is the worksheet. And I kind of, like I said, show you an example of how the slicer works, that it affects these two as well. I don't want these to be affected by slicer. I feel like these should always stay where they are. If I'm being honest, these should always stay where they are. If you're going to do anything like this that you want this to change, then I would do it based off a month. This is based off the entire year. If you want to make one where it's only about each month, then that's fine. But since this is an annual dashboard, these really should not be changed by any filtering because they don't need to be changed, in my opinion. But yeah, that is the dashboard. Like I said, I showed how to use the filter here. They could be applied to all the rest. I used the lookup functions, VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP. You saw me fail an attempt to do an index match. But yeah, and like I said, this is something that on like a scale of 1 to 10, I think like a scale 1 to 10 of difficulty, I say there's almost like I would say one even like skill wise, maybe like a 3.5. But what really stands out, it's not even the difficulty. It's the way it's organized. And I would recommend this to anybody because the way it's organized, the coloring choices, the charts, it shows a higher level of intelligence when it comes to Excel than just doing crazy hard functions, right? Because at the end of the day, anyone can use ChatGPT to learn a function. But to actually put together the right coloring, the use of charts, like that, you decide that. That is higher level than just typing in a crazy long function just to show off or something like that. Learn a lot, step by step. No, yeah, and I appreciate it. Yeah, and I appreciate that. Like I said, I definitely try to use my teaching background with stuff like this. I know it can be hard doing live workshops because most times when people do these things, like, you're watching a YouTube video, you could pause and stuff like that. But that's how this is too, because the whole point is, it's hard to probably get all done all at once. But that's the whole point, is you could always look back and watch it. You could look back at things that maybe you're unsure about how to do a certain lookup, or you're unsure how to do a certain visual. You could always look back at a later time and make those changes. So that's why I want to do this on YouTube, so people could always look back and learn and stuff like that. But if anyone has any questions or anything about this in particular, or anything Excel related or anything in general, I'd be willing to definitely answer any questions or help out in any way before I wrap this up or anything like that. Okay, so like I said, if there's any questions, if they're not, you can let me know. Probably wrap this up. Give it like a few more seconds if anyone has any questions or anything to add on. 3, 2, and okay, cool. So I think we're all good here. Like I said, if you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. You could also, I sent out my email as well in case you have any questions about this or anything about the materials. Enjoy seeing this huge potential illustrating data. Awesome. Yeah, and like I said, the whole illustrating data, it's all about when it comes to visualizing data. It's all about finding your way of doing it. Because at the end of the day, like I said before, I like the color navy blue, right? That's my example. Maybe you like a different color to use. Or maybe you're like, you know what? I don't want to do a stack bar chart. I want to do something else. That's fine. It's all good. You find your way. Everyone should develop their own way in visualizing data or how they want to be formatted. That's what makes it unique, because data visualization is very subjective. Everyone has their own opinion. Everyone has their own way of doing it, but that's what it's all about. So the goal with anything that's guided comes from someone who 2 years ago was watching tutorials all day. The whole point of it is to find your way of visualizing data and how you want to envision it, because your way is probably different than everyone else, and that's fine. So through these tutorials, learn some aspects, learn things like the lookups, learn these visuals, and then see what works best for you. That's how you develop, and that's how you get better. So that's a really good point. You brought that up. Yeah, no problem. No, I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Do I do videos on other BI tools? So I think for a while I was spreading myself too thin, where I was doing a lot of Tableau stuff. I did a couple Power BI things. Excel has always been my strongest tool by a lot. So I like making different projects in Excel. I think because I like definitely communicating with people who already have a professional job but aren't in analytics yet, and they could use maybe some reports could be done in Excel that it can improve and try to maybe get that promotion or something like that. So I kind of like doing more Excel stuff in that way. But I want to do, I would say I'm much better at Tableau than Power BI. I'm trying to learn I've used Power BI for a handful of years, but never anything too crazy. I would like to do more content with Tableau, Power BI, SQL as well. But I think for right now, I'm enjoying working with Excel, making things in Excel and things like that. But definitely there will be times I want to be doing bigger projects. Like I'm talking like 6-7 hour projects where we're querying in SQL, visualizing in Tableau and stuff like that. I want to do much longer projects. But yeah, I plan on doing a lot of live webinars coming up with different BI tools. But for now, I'm sticking with Excel until I get a little more comfortable doing these workshops and everything like that. So you want to tag it. So yeah, if you post on LinkedIn and you tag me, I will 100% comment and like your posts. I will help. That's no problem at all. If you ever do any of these dashboards or you ever do any of these workshops and you want to post it on LinkedIn, tag me in it. Yeah, no problem. I will like it right away and comment on how I think about it and stuff like that. So anytime you make this and you want to post it on LinkedIn, by all means, I don't care at all. I don't care at all. You tag me, I'll like it, no problem. I'll help you out as much as I can from that standpoint. That's no problem at all. How real years to each other? A year come? Yeah. So if you want to do, this is all based off of that. So yeah, I mean, what you would do is when you go to your data, is add in the year. So like for this, I would add in the year that happened, so then you can use it as an additional filter for your slicer. You could do then, okay, so this is annual for 2023, but what about how did 2022 look? You could add in a new slicer for that. You just add in a new column right here, just as we had for month, just to make sure it's also being able to look at the year as well. So that requires a little bit more work, but extremely doable. It's just another column and another slicer to have to do. But that's definitely no problem at all. And if you ever have any questions on that, setting up the year column or anything like that, or putting that all together, you can always reach out to me and I can help. But yeah, all you gotta do is add in the year column just so you know everything that's being done with it is associated by a certain year. So that's a good question. Yeah, so that's a great way to improve on that and add an additional slicer. You should add in the year right next to the month and you should be all good to go. That's a good question. Yeah, feedback. Like I said, I never claim to be an expert with this stuff. I never claim to be, when I'm putting this stuff together, like, oh, this is the best thing in the world. Like, yes, of course, I am confident, but everyone has their own way of doing things, right? The whole point is I've looked at people post things on LinkedIn, and I see that they did something that I worked on in a video, and they did it way better. And I'm like, I have no problem saying, man, thank you. It's good to look to see how you did it, because it makes me realize maybe I forgot something here, or I was, didn't put too much focus on this area. So it's always good to learn from people to see how they put things together and see how we all can keep improving. That's all this is. There's, like, for example, the when I was here, these white borders right here. I wasn't doing that until I saw a video probably about like late last year where I saw someone doing it, and I was like, that's really interesting. Like, I think that looks really cool. Let me try to do that. And I was like, I really like this a lot. And that's how it is. Like, if I didn't see anyone else doing it, I would have never thought about it or have done it. So all these things you see is just from continuously getting out there and just being open to feedback and learning from people and seeing what works for them and what doesn't. That's how all this works. All of the things you see here is from me continuously learning and watching from others and seeing what works for me and what I like to do. So that's good too. Yeah. Always being open for feedback and looking to continuously improve will always help you from a visualization and formatting perspective when it comes to working with Excel and other tools and stuff like that. So that's a good point. Okay. Like I said, if there was any other questions, you let me know before I wrap up. But like I said, I definitely plan on doing some more workshops. Some will be a little bit more like even shorter ones. I have some lined up, like I want to do like a job tracking dashboard. I have some other ones I want to do too. Some will be Excel related. Some I want to do Tableau or Power BI related. But I definitely have a lot coming up. So make sure to subscribe to my channel here, as I will be coming out with workshops very often. I think this went overall fairly well from a production standpoint, and everything along with here, I felt it went not bad. I'm looking forward to doing more in the future. And like I said, make sure to subscribe to me on YouTube so you can check out all my next videos. Make sure you follow me if you do on LinkedIn for more stuff coming up. But I really appreciate everyone coming by. If you ever have any questions, reach out to me there. And I really appreciate everyone coming by. And I'll see you all around. Thank you very much. Have a great